Hello everybody, this is Fun Police, and I am back for what is going to be another deck tech. I apologize that it's been quite a delay between the last video and this one. I've intended to do more videos, but my allergies acted up and my voice just did not sound good, very nasally. So I ended up not making a video last week, but I am back this week with an interesting deck tech. For today, we're actually going to be taking a look at a list that is created by one of the top players, JKing7, and was brought to the May 2022 Officers Club Championship. It is a Soviet Japan value deck. Now, before we get into anything, make sure to check the description as I've linked JKing's various platforms. He's a great content creator and one of the best players in the game, so make sure to head over there and watch him for high-end gameplay and skillful analysis of various videos such as the OCC. Anyway, this is a deck that caught my eye because it's so different than a lot of decks. If we just look quickly through the decks, there's stuff like Spy Rings, BRYANSK Irregulars, we have Amphibious Assaults, 52Ks, Takasaki Regiments. It's a very different deck than we've seen with stuff like Soviet Value. And it piqued my curiosity, so I went ahead and asked JKing some questions. And one of the biggest and to start off, one of the things that was mentioned was that this deck is largely a anti-meta deck. The way that this current list is built is to counter two primary decks, the current being Combined Arms and British Air. And this is a big reason why you see things such as Scorched Earth and Amphibious Assaults and the 52Ks. This deck is very much built around being able to answer those early snowballing threats that those decks produce, and then just is built around a value core that is able to hopefully close games out against other decks. There are some things that could be altered, and we'll get about those when we get into the card discussion. But this deck definitely is built very specifically, and some alterations could be made if you're taking this for a more general deck. Another thing I asked JKing was what would be the hardest deck for this thing to face off against. And the two decks he named were US Ramp, or British Ramp for that matter, and then a greedy version of German Control. The reason being is that this deck, although definitely has good value, does not have a lot of really big removal. And stuff like Ramp and things like German Control can be very heavy in their threat density if they lean into it. So if you're seeing a lot of those decks, this might not be the deck for you. However, with the meta with the meta being based around British Air and various aggro decks, this deck could have some real place in it. And then against that, we can just talk about the various cards, and I'll try to give some good reasoning before giving some substitutions and various other things. So to start off, JKing has 4 copies of Bloody Sickle in the deck. Not a whole lot to explain about them. If you've seen any deck tech where I've had Sickle, I've explained it's like the universal Soviet card. You put 4 into every deck unless you have a specific reason not to. It's really good. Not a whole lot to say. Then we have the 329th Engineer Battalion. The 329th is a very powerful healing option within the Soviets. It's very, very good at just gaining you tons of HP and is very effective overall in terms of its healing potential. The enemy has to spend a card to remove this if they want to, so even though it might not have the biggest impact in every matchup, the threat of gaining like 10 HP off of this one card is something that the enemy will be forced to deal with eventually. There's also the 845th Rifles. This is a solid anti-aggro unit, being able to play out a modestly sized 2-drop that also is going to heal you roughly around 2 to 3 HP at least is very efficient. it's not the fastest response. The lack of guard or any blitz keyword makes it so it is a bit slow, but granted, on turn 2, it's not hard to play this out and just be happy with that. So it's an overall very effective tool and is probably one of the go-to 2-drops for Soviet value overall. Then we get into some of the more interesting decisions. Starting off is Scorched Earth. Now, Scorched Earth is a bit of it was called out as a bit of a tech card. The biggest thing is that you're able to severely bog down the aggro-based decks with a well-timed Scorched Earth. You can hurt yourself if you do it and you have a lot of units in your support line. So it's important to remember that if possible, try to move your units into the front line and then Scorched Earth. But the big thing is that against something like, say, the Combined Arms Humber decks, a Scorched Earth on turn 2 can just blank their game plan and completely throw their entire strategy off. So you could almost see this as a form of removal, essentially being 2 credits to kill something like a Swordfish or a Humber, because they're just not going to be able to operate that and win the game off of it, especially early on. So it's actually kind of like a removal spell, or a removal order, and that actually has some nice benefits to it. Spy Ring is another card that you generally don't see in Soviet value. Generally, it's seen as too slow. But the reason this is taken was because it was a card that can give you some early game interaction against aggro decks, but also can transition into late game value. So it pulls a dual purpose. For example, Reich Research is able to have the V1 Flying Bomb, which is probably the strongest anti-aggro option. However, Radar and Depth Charges both provide you with either some additional ramp or some protection and healing. It's a variety of different effects, but they all are generally worthwhile to find off of Research. And then, if you're playing a slower deck, you're able to escalate up into something such as the Type 21 U-boat, the Manhattan Project, or Depth Charges, depending on which one you get. So it's generally quite effective and has that multi-purpose asset to it. However, J. King did point out that if you are playing a lot of very heavy aggro, or playing against a bunch of very greedy control decks, Spy Rings could actually be replaced with bigger value options that are generally a bit faster and more impactful. Most notably, he said that the Empire of the Sun is a good one to include. Being able to have some hard removal that potentially draws you 4 to 5 cards is quite a powerful tool and would fit in place of the Spy Ring if you're looking for things like more value in the deck. But again, this list was built around an anti-aggro list, so that's why these cards are in there. Then you have the BRYANSK Irregulars. These came out in one of the last World at Wars and haven't seen a whole lot of play. However, they do compete quite well compared to the other Soviet 2K options. We do have 845th rifles, but you also have mobile defense. However, the Irregulars sticks around as a guard compared to mobile defense, and is generally just a kind of an annoying card to deal with. 6 health is not the easiest thing to trade into. Most notably, it's able to block the damage of, say, a Fury Humber for the most part. And the other effect is that, as I said before, it sticks around. So the T-70s, you'd have to operate on your next turn. You can plant the Irregulars down and then either just like move it into the front line or just keep it to guard, and the enemy's eventually going to have to deal with it. So it's a very solid tool. It also has the benefit of being able to strike back against stuff like fighters and against stuff like bombers. A Swordfish cannot freely attack into the Irregulars if it would die, because then they take 3 damage. So that's what the advantage it has over something like mobile defense. Then we have Red Banner. Red Banner has a couple distinct purposes, but generally you have 2 or 3 targets that are quite worth it. We have, most notably, a 272nd Guards, which when combined with Red Banner creates 2 IS-2s in the support line, which is a powerful effect. However, there is also a single copy of Partisans, so you could potentially take a high-value unit from the enemy and then use Red Banner to turn it into one of your own units. Generally, the 272nd is going to be the more impactful one, but being able to sometimes have that Partisan gives you a little bit of flexibility. Then we have Heroes of the Soviet Union. This is able to find a variety of Soviet elites. Most of them are quite good. It's a bit of a toolbox card, as you're able to find a variety of things like early game Cossacks, or you can find more first rifles, potentially another naval brigade or an airborne or a KV-1, or even scaling up into stuff like the another 272nd ISU or Iosif Stalin. It's generally got a good list of pools. You can pretty much always find a good pool, and it's very difficult to not get something good out of Heroes of the Soviet Union. So it's just a little bit slow, but good value. Then we have our removal suite. So we have the Hammer, which is a pretty standard Soviet removal order. Generally pops up in Soviet value because you're pretty much able to just destroy whatever ground unit you're looking to hit. Very few units outside of big late game bombs are able to survive the Hammer, so being able to hit the enemy, kill our enemy ground units is very effective. Also notably is able to deal stuff with like a buffed up Humber or similar things immediately, so that has a big benefit. You also have 3 copies of Amphibious Assault. This is another anti-aggro option, and generally Amphibious Assault is not like the most common order and has fallen out of favor, but because this deck is committed so much to countering the current meta, Amphibious is actually really flexible. Its most obvious advantage is blowing up a moderately buffed up unit, like say a Humber that's a 3/6. Amphibious Assault is able to cleanly deal with that. It also has the benefit of being able to hit air units, so you can blow up something like a Swordfish if it's only like a 2/4 or a 3/5. So this makes Amphibious Assault relatively flexible and good at removing most early game threats, but it does fall off against slower decks. So if you are looking to make this deck a little more value oriented, maybe one Amphibious could leave the deck to make room. You also have the 52K. The 52K is the British air tech, and that's pretty much its purpose. It's here to help you have a way to remove various air units when you need to. You can essentially see it like the opposite of the Hammer. The Hammer is here to help shut down Humber decks more effectively. The 52K is here to shut down Brit Air more effectively. If you're not seeing a lot of British Air for whatever reason, then the 52Ks could probably leave the deck for maybe higher impact cards. And vice versa. Then we have Parade. Parade is a value card, simply put. You're able to essentially get 2 units out of 1. And this can be quite powerful because most of our units are pretty high impact. There's very few units outside of some of the anti-aggro tools that we wouldn't want to draw with it, but we're much more likely to find some sort of higher impact unit, and this gives Parade a good set of value. It also helps because you're only drawing a single card, but yet getting 2 in the hand, you essentially get like a free card in your deck, in that you're not drawing 2 cards and like putting yourself closer to fatigue. So the Soviet value deck can find extra gas itself closer to a fatigue state. Then we have 61st Infantry Regiment. This is an overall decent guard unit. I've talked about this card a lot. If you've seen many of my other deck techs, 61st is just kind of like a very standard but solid guard unit. 4/4 guard for 4 credits is not particularly amazing, but it also has card draw, so it replaces itself when it dies. There's honestly not a whole lot to say about it. It's just a very solid guard. Then we have 2 Sendai regiments. The Sendai regiments are temporary removal and are most effective at resetting buffs on units. Most notably, if you're able to use it on a card such as a massive Swordfish, Even if the enemy kills the Sendai Regiment, they're only going to get back an unbuffed Swordfish. All the buffs get wiped away because the unit has left the battlefield. This makes Sendai very efficient in terms of its various effects in anti-aggro work. There is a bit of a weakness here in that this card is not particularly good against slower decks, unless they are, for whatever reason, committing to buffs. But the bigger thing is that Sendai often gets caught into board clears and also just generally will die to the vast amounts of removal slower decks has. And we're not an aggro deck, so we can't like capitalize on like clearing a guard out of the way most of the time. So the Sendai Regiment does fall off against value decks, but its work against control or aggro decks is very appreciated. Then we have the Takasaki Regiment. This is a card that we have not seen in quite a while in terms of the OCC. Previously, it was ran with way back in the day when it was a 3/6, and it was used in a German-Japan control deck, but it ended up getting nerfed because it was pretty well statted with a powerful effect. Forcing the enemy to discard is pretty destructive, and makes Takasaki almost guaranteed to be a 2-for-1. However, this deck relies on it not only as more anti-aggro tools because it's another 4-credit guard, but also it helps to pull up some of the value side because of that forced discard. It's not reliable because we're not able to like use it as a main strategy, but being able to maybe pick off like a high value card from the enemy hand can essentially make Takasaki like even the playing field a bit between your deck and other control decks. So it actually serves a good kind of dual role of the anti-aggro and value, similar to something like Spy Ring did. We have first rifles in the deck. Very simply, very efficient and potent guard. It's a 3/5 that summons a 3/4 after it dies, all for 4 credits. It is dirt cheap. It operates for cheap. Very sticky. There's not a whole lot to say about it. It's a fantastic 4-drop. Very, very strong. Then we get on to Partisans. We only have a single copy of the Partisans, but for 6 credits, previously Partisans was run as kind of one of the powerhouse cards of Soviet value, but after the changes to Ural factories, it became a lot less popular due to the combos that it has just being a bit slower. However, by no means does that make Partisans a bad card. It's just that it's fallen a bit out of favor. However, in this deck, we've seen one copy of it make its way into the deck. And this is also a bit because of its ability to be a bit of an anti-aggro card. It's not ideal, but being able to, for 6 credits, take an enemy unit and bounce it back to their hand can wipe away their buffs. And in that way, it serves a similar purpose to Sendai Regiment. Thankfully, for Partisans, there's also some synergy with Red Banner, meaning that in slower matchups, it's possible to say Partisans a high-value target and steal it permanently thanks to Red Banner. Then we have the KV-1 1941. This is a pretty standard Soviet elite. It makes its way into most Soviet lists. It is a decently sized body that also just punishes the enemy for drawing cards. If you can pull ahead in a board advantage, the KV-1 can make it very difficult for the enemy to dig themselves out of a bad position because they're going to take so much damage drawing cards to recover. So the KV-1 is overall just very effective. We have the 83rd Naval Brigade, another pretty standard Soviet value card. Being able to have a removal on a stick is just very good. It's been proven to be very powerful. This one also is on an ambush guard, so it's difficult to attack into, but works well in just almost any circumstance. It's just overall really good. Then we have Winter Offensive. Winter Offensive is a very efficient board clear. Also can go face for the enemy, meaning that you can potentially deal 4 damage to help close games out. But the bigger thing is just that it's one of the few Soviet board clears. Then we have the 272nd Guards. This is one of the big value cards, and its biggest win con is the fact that when combined with Red Banner, you double the amount of, you get 2 IS-2s into the support line, which gives you a lot of power to work with. It's one of the best combos in Soviet value and is a very difficult thing for players to deal with. And then the final card is Tractor Factories. Tractor Factories is essentially adding 2 Blitz T-34s to your support line. These are decent. This is a very good card. Being able to, on turn 12, when you have 12 credits, you'll be able to play the T-34 1942 and operate them, whether you can move one and attack immediately with it, or if you move both into the front line or attack with both if you need to fight out units out of the front line. It's generally quite flexible and just gives you some good extra durability. But that is the deck. So, as I said, this is a very anti-aggro based deck, and if you notice, players that play Soviet value might have noticed that a few cards are missing out of it. Stuff like the ISU 152 that normally do show up in the in the value lists don't. And that's because a lot of room has been made to, as effectively as possible, shut down the meta of Combined Arms and British Air. So cards that otherwise seemed core to the deck were overall removed. However, you could definitely change that back. I've talked about it before, but some of these anti-aggro cards like Spy Ring and things like the 52K could be replaced with higher impact cards, such as the ISU or the Empire of the Sun from Japan, if you're looking to make this deck a bit better against slow decks. In terms of mulligan, you generally want to assume that you're facing off against aggro decks, and you're just going to be looking for usually stuff like Bloody Sickle, your 2-cost cards like Irregulars, 845th Rifles, and Spy Rings. And then if you have those, you're free to keep some of your removal. Hammer and Amphibious Assault are pretty flexible. The 52K is when you know you're going to be facing against an air deck, which is for the most part against Britain. That would be when you keep the 52K, but otherwise a hammer's not a bad keep, and then your 2-drops. If you're know for a fact that you're facing off against value decks, you could keep something like Parade and Heroes of the Soviet Union, but you gotta make sure you know that you're against control. It's generally safer to mulligan for aggro because that's what the deck is best built for, and you're more likely to find that and just have success with it. But with that all said, let's do a couple games with it and see how it does. Alrighty, so we're up against a Japanese deck. That could include Japan aggro, so we'll keep the hammer as a decent removal option. Sickle's really nice. That'll deal with a 15th Cavalry cleanly, or potentially an Akita, although generally don't want to ping an Akita. They didn't play anything turn 1, so that's probably not Japan aggro then. Oh, it is. Ah, it was just an unlucky draw from them. That's good for us, though. We're going to Heroes of the Soviet Union, see what we can find. Generally going to look for guards, so I think the Naval Brigade is the right pick here. I want a Takasaki next turn, so I think it makes sense to sickle that, but that is 3 damage to my HQ. Let's see, if they don't do that, I think it might be best to actually wait. I would rather try to preserve my HP because I don't have any of my 845ths or the Engineer in hand, so I don't have any healing, and I might not find them in the match in time, so I want to probably preserve my health a little bit if possible. Otherwise, I'd be taking 3 damage from that. Panzer 35, alright. First Rifles, I think, is definitely better here. The double guard means that they're going to have a hard time removing that. They could Sendai it. Alright, they will, but we'll just be able to respond by a hammer. Or we could develop the Takasaki and kill off the Akita outright. Let's see, that would potentially set it up so I have next turn hammer. Do have the spy rings, which are nice. Let's see, what would I do turn 6 then? Might be better just to hammer sickle now. Because next turn could be Takasaki plus spy ring. And see how that goes. I think we'll do the hammer play now, get that back. I feel more potent with this as a guard. Getting our healing, which is a good thing, like that's probably one of the most important things against Japan aggro, is that just even a little bit of healing will be able to push us over the edge. So this is a very burn-heavy variant. Well, I don't have a way to deal with that now, so I think it would be best to just fill the board up. And then next turn we can, like, spy rings and operate our units. This is a very burn-heavy variant. This might actually be difficult for us. I think I want to spy ring and see what we find. Radar's really nice, actually. Definitely want to get our healing, and I think we're going to outright do this. That's good. Sendai is actually pretty good at, like, countering this 10-05 if he somehow deals with the first rifles in the front line. But he's probably going to have to trade in a couple units. Amphibious assault, alright. This is a very old version of Japan Burn. Normally don't see a list like this that much. Alright, well, we're definitely going to trade again. There's Amphibious Assault. I think we'll do that. And then we can trade like this, and then I could Spy Ring and see what we get. Death Charges. Those are not the most useful. Might want to go for the Penicillin, honestly. Like, Penicillin would probably be just game over. Yeah, this is a very burn-heavy deck. Like, my goodness. This is like a throwback to way long ago. So I could potentially do double research and then next turn be able to turn that into penicillin. And if I give a bunch of HP to my... If I get penicillin off with 1 or 2 guards out, like, he'll pretty much never be able to hurt me. Definitely don't want a winter offensive here. Other options could be Sendai this, kill it off, and then push the Takasaki into the front line. That would deny him the ability to do much. And I don't know how I feel about that. I could also develop the 845th alongside this and then still trade, but that doesn't put me into the front line, but it does get out more healing for me. Alright, we'll do that. I'm a bit worried still. Like, he'll have to respond by killing this on his turn, but I want to deny just that little bit of damage. It also means that if he doesn't have, like, another amphibious or something like that, then he's gonna have to... he gets it right back. That sucks. Wow, this is a burn-heavy deck. My goodness. I think I need to push straight for penicillin. I need a big old heal. Plus, next turn I could irregulars plus penicillin in order to, like, fill up my hand and also have a big guard protecting me. Like, he's definitely... It's not the most ideal thing in the world, but penicillin will definitely keep me alive for the short term. There's the 29th Engineers, and that's a good draw. Alright. Sickles will activate the 83rds. I'm going to definitely hammer the signal and get that off the board to reduce the amount of healing. If he's got the 3rd amphibious here, I'm probably in trouble. Seems like he doesn't, so he's trading into it, which is good. The giant 845th rifles here is also really good. That's going to save me on a lot of health. It's fine that we overdraw. So, I want to definitely... First things first, we're not even going to consider anything else until that's gone. Now, I believe we're going to do something like this, and then just hold. And I think we have him here. I don't think he has anything to get through the guards. And I think that'll be game. Yeah, he's not going to be able to deal enough damage to kill me. Yeah, alright. Well, that was a bit of a weird Japan aggro. Usually they're not that heavy on effects like that, but definitely want to just keep putting guards out. The main thing is just to make sure that we have multiple guards to block off things like Shidens and whatnot. We don't want any of those ever hurting us and killing us. I guess we can honestly move this into the front line. I don't see a reason not to, especially if it's behind a guard. Just get it up there so it's more... He is very all in on that burn. But I believe I have him here. I wish I could find another hammer, because if I could hammer the 845th, that would just be game. But we're not finding it, so... Let's see. So he does die next turn. I can probably push this up into the front line. So he has to somehow deal 5 damage. Oh, nope, there we go. Alrighty. And that is the game. Like I said, bit of a weird Japan aggro deck. We don't usually see one that burn heavy, but that goes to show the anti-aggro capabilities of this deck, that even against a deck that is pretty much every burn card in the game, we're able to still survive through our guards and various healing tools. Alrighty, and we are into a match against Germany. So against this, we're going to keep... We're absolutely assuming that it's combined arms. So we're keeping 845th rifles, sickle, and scorched earth. The 52k is honestly not that bad. This is honestly a fantastic hand, assuming it's combined arms. Although no Humber on turn 1. This means they're a little bit off curve, which is a good thing for us. If it was the turn 1 high roll, though, we would have been able to just, like, Scorched Earth on turn 2 after they did the HS, and then they would have just been bogged down. Honestly, it might be right to just Scorched Earth right now. Just bog down that Humber. Keep throwing them off curve. Because next turn we're going to be able to guard. And we will be able... That completely probably throws off the curve of the Combined Arms deck, which is like the big reason for Scorched Earth. Yeah, see, they're having to do something very different because they can't buff up with that. And there's just no way they could operate it. Probably worth it to get down a guard. I'm going to put down the 60 first because if he buffs this up with like an HS, then I want to be able to successfully deal with this by trading into it. Takasaki might not get answered by that. Yeah, seems like his curve has been thrown off quite a bit, which is what we want. Gonna kill that off to remove the need for his effects, and then we don't even need to ping that. I think we just go for Spy Ring. Then we got the research. As you can see, this deck even is very effective, and even if they had gotten the most disgusting possible high roll, we had answers to it. I don't know if the deck will be able to recover, if his deck is going to be able to recover from what's going on here. Blow that up. Kill that off. Put down this, and he's probably out of the game now. 2 cards in hand. I guess he could Enigma and recover from that, but at this point we're starting to get to the credit cost where I'm in control of the game. He's got Comet, so he could finish me off, but the mixture of the amount of guards that I'm going to have out on the board are just going to be like so much. We just kill off this one Humber so we can like trade into this, and like he's not going to have the resources to kill the Takasaki. We pretty much just need to clean up the board a little bit, put down some more guards, and that'll probably be game. So I'll actually have to... This is where Scorched Earth kind of bites me in the butt a little bit, because I have to pay 4 credits to move that, but honestly, that's fine. We're in a very strong position. I think we probably just keep developing units out on the board. Even if he like blitzes into the 52k, it honestly doesn't matter. We're just trying to make sure our board is so overwhelming that he doesn't have the ability to fight back against it, which... There is a Leopold. Okay. That is actually a bit awkward. But that is fine. We'll develop the 52Ks, and then we'll play Naval out, and that will recover us. We still gotta worry about the Comet being in his hand, but... Again, they normally don't run much late game. Leopold was the one option. Also, we can just, like, Tractor Factories and threaten that off. Alright, let's see if this works. Okay. Then we put this down. And then we put down our healing again, which actually is at 1 operation cost, so that's nice. And we should be pretty smooth from here. They don't have any more... They could run, like, Yag Bomber or something like that, but Even then, the CA decks don't normally do that, so I feel pretty safe. I think I'm going to Tractor Factories, keep the 2 guards in the support line, but this will threaten lethal in 2 turns, and without Leopold, they're not going to have the ability to recover. Yeah, definitely. We definitely have them here. Put down more guards to protect, and this will be game. Because he will not have any options to finish it off. And as you see, deck's very good against combined arms. It's built very specifically to counter that. So, that is that. Alrighty, this is a US version, US deck. So this is either going to be US frontline or ramp, and we're going to assume that it's frontline, but if it's ramp, we're definitely going to be in for a tough matchup. This is still the one that was brought to the OCC, so nothing turn 1 probably means it's ramp, which we're going to have to do some tough work to see if we can overwhelm them. Yeah, it's definitely ramp. Our lack of things to pressure are gonna hurt us. That's definitely ramp. 332nd is a bit of a weird card, I will admit. Normally not the common ramp tool compared to War Machine and United We Stand. There's In Hour of Need, but definitely getting up there quite quickly. Takasaki is going to be a good card here. He will help to maybe balance things out a little bit. At the very least, the Irregulars are going to have a nice effect where they're going to kind of absorb certain hits. Him going for Manhattan Project is a bit terrifying. Yeah, I don't think I want to commit too much to this board. We're going to have to like play it slow, and then if we can find 845s, those are going to be fantastic for Manhattan projects, but if we don't, then we're going to have to work quickly to recover after the double nukes happen. So this is probably all I'll commit to this board, and then we'll just keep attacking in, and maybe we can deal some decent damage while he sets up for the nukes. Yeah, it's a bit of a tough part. If I could have found a Spy Ring early, then I could also be working towards potentially like a big effect. Something like a depth charge or a U-boat, or even my own Manhattan projects would be really strong against him, but sadly didn't find it, so we'll have to just kind of work it as best we can. So he might be actually struggling with hand size now. He doesn't want to... He's going to overdraw unless he plays something for 1 credit, but I guess he's fine with that. That is actually a perfect top deck. Question is, do I play it out now or later? I guess now doesn't hurt. That way we absorb the first hit. So he's going to discard a card, and I'm going to draw a card after he nukes, but I won't take any damage from it. Counter-Strike is a weird card. Guess it kind of makes sense in the Humber deck, but I don't know about that, to be honest. That's a great pickoff. The B-17F is very hard for us to deal with, so us being able to cleanly ignore that is fantastic. gonna have to still just keep taking this slow. He has not played any unit except for his one truck, so not a whole lot going on so far. We have a clean answer to the B-17 through the 52K and Bloody Sickle. Probably want to save the 830, the 83rd for something in case he has like a Pershing or something like that. But we definitely have to kind of take it slow, and we're going to have to try to bait out that other Manhattan project. Still don't know his ally also, so we have to be a bit careful that we don't like get too low on life and then he like plays something with a big blitz unit and kills us. He is also only at 12 credits, so tough turn. Him playing nothing kind of sucks. I guess the Sendai's not that valuable. He's maybe trying to, like, milk out a bigger thing for the Manhattan. I don't know. He's playing this extremely slowly. Island hopping. Okay. So he's French. French mobilize? Huh. So... yeah, we'll definitely just move that up. I guess it's just a Scorched Earth. Get rid of that. See what we can do. As a French deck, I guess I could be worried about resistance, but I don't know. I'm not exactly sure what's going on here. More credit gaining. Finally plays a unit. We'll just amphibious assault that. Well, definitely heroes now and just see what we find. ISU could be good. 83rd is also... I think the ISU is a little bit better because it's a bigger threat. Also could potentially board clear later on. Just play out the other Sendai. This is definitely a very weird deck that I'm facing off against. All the ramp cards. That's one B-17, so we have two more Avengers, one more B-17, potentially a Pershing, invasion, mass deployment is probably a big threat. I think we just play out 272nd naturally. I don't want to do this because it's just going to get nuked, so I think we just play it out naturally. That's a good draw. Definitely will help allow us to pressure a little bit. He could, like, double respond to that, but... I really don't know what's... I'm worried something's gonna happen, but I don't think anything is, to be honest. I'll just Scorched Earth again. So we keep drawing. Alright. Probably gonna Avenger the IS-2 now. B-17's it. Alright. That's fine. So now he mobilizes. So... sadly, if we had a Ural Factories, if we had Ural Factory in this deck, we could very cleanly take the B-17, kill this, and turn it into a Pershing, but we don't have that, so this gets more awkward. I think we're just gonna do this, and then we'll get one of the amphibious out. And then we'll play 845th also. So that's both B-17s out of his hand, or out of the game. But he's got, so he has another P-47, probably has 2 Avengers. There's Seaborn. Not the greatest thing that pulls from Seaborn. I think it's probably a good Partisans target. Take this, trade it, and then just Red Banner. Seven drops are not the greatest things ever, but I mean, hey, it's like a 5/5 fighter. It's a decent threat. And then we push the guard into the front line to threaten the Avenger. Like, he's going to have to respond to both of these threats if he wants to, like, Avenger this down. It's mobilizing. He's drawing very deeply into his deck. He will die to fatigue now, but we are starting to run out of cards in hand. You can definitely see that, even though this is a weird deck I'm facing off against, like, Ramp is not the nicest deck to deal with. Well, that's a good card, but it might get me nuked. I guess I just gotta kinda do it, though. Like, yeah, this will probably trigger the nuke, but I'm not seeing a whole lot of ways to deal with the Avenger otherwise. It probably triggers the nuke. Oh, high alt bombing. Okay. That's fine. Oh, he's starting to go in for damage. And he has resistance. Ugh. That's not nice. There's a spy ring, finally. Let's see what this gives us. That's actually not bad. I'm gonna go for U-boat. U-boat would be the best pool out of everything. I gotta be really careful. I gotta remember, I'm essentially down 6 health because of Manhattan Project, unless I can get rid of that with the discard. So I gotta remember that I'm essentially on 8 health right now. If I get below 6 and he has the nuke in hand still, I die. So gotta be really careful and try to tread water very lightly here. The biggest thing I'm probably nervous of is another Avenger or some other big dumb bomber, but he's played most of those. It's really just the other Avenger I'm worried about right now, at least until I could set up the U-boat. I can deal with almost anything else. Mass deployment. Ugh. Ugh. Wait, I can... Yeah, that's really rough. I'm getting the big blitz bomber. Sadly, I don't see a way out of this. I could do this, but then I just die to that and nukes. And I'm just a turn short of that, which even then, this is just kill me. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, as you can see, Ramp is quite the nasty deck to deal with. Very, very difficult to tackle. Alrighty. It's a Soviet matchup. So, Scorched Earth might actually be a good keep here. I'm also going to keep the hammer. I'm assuming I'm facing off against a Soviet artillery deck. And if that is the case, Scorched Earth will cripple their backline. Like, that'll just win the game. Seemingly not. Seemingly this is another Soviet value deck. It is. It might actually be a mirror match. Well, this will be very interesting. Sendai is not the greatest. I guess it helps if he double IS 2s and I don't have a clean answer to it. It's a ramp version, okay. Well, it's not a mirror match. Although it probably does have the advantage here. Since we're definitely going into a slow matchup, probably need to work towards Manhattan projects then. Spiring definitely like helps to give us some late game oomph. It's a T-34 deck. Ooh, this is spicy. So, against the T-34 deck, I'm going to want good single target removal. So we'll hammer that down. I definitely want to work towards the nukes. If I can get the nukes out quickly enough, like, he won't be able to do much in response. So I actually need to make some space in my hand. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to Scorched Earth to slow this all down. That's going to really, like, eat up his hand. And then we're going to Sendai Regiment on his irregulars. I don't really want to, like, reset the costs of these. Like, I'd rather them just kind of waste away in the front line where he's not willing to spend credits to do stuff with them. Because the main goal, I think, right now is just to head right towards the research. So he's spending 8 credits to do that. In which case, I will just kill off one of his frontline units. I'm fine with forcing him to spend the 4 credits if he wants that T-34, so I'm not going to trade into it. Alright. Just double guard up. Seems like a good play. Wish I had a sickle. That'd be great against this, but sadly, not. He's definitely applying good pressure. Like, it's definitely gonna take me time to get back from this. Thankfully, we have Winter Offensive, so most of the boards he's gonna build are gonna be not particularly strong. I just need to squeeze in some turns where I'm able to pressure or research. Now might be a good time to research. Here's the question, do I want to trade into either of these? I could just Sendai them. If I Sendai the 6/6, then that's the more expensive one for him to get back. This one is a decent threat, but like I can just like Winter Offensive at any time. I'm mainly just trying to look for a turn to stall out. No retreat. Ooh. That is very spicy. So I definitely just want to push towards the nukes. I don't even need to Scorched Earth here, I don't think. I could, though. I think I do this. That's going to slow him down massively and will give me breathing room to potentially just nuke whenever I feel like it. But now that I got the nukes, I feel pretty confident that I'm going to be able to overcome him. I think I do one nuke here just to get rid of that thing in the front line. But after that, probably just keep it going slow and steady. I have 2 more clears in hand. So I want to try to keep the Manhattan Project until he is, like, severely overcommitted. So we're going to take it nice and slow, if possible. There's a Red Banner to pair up with Partisans, which could be quite powerful. I'm also going to play a little bit around Stars and Stripes and put that stuff in the front line. If he still wants to spend like 8 credits to attack into those, so be it. You know, that's another turn of me not doing much, and I get more card draw, which I'm actually a bit worried I might run out of cards. He's definitely got like the advantage in card draw thanks to like mobilization and all that, so I got to make sure I keep a decent hand against him. Okay. One of the sneaky things about this Soul Partisan is that if I can hold it until he commits to a 270-second guards, I'd be able to steal it. Honestly, I feel like I could just pass here. I feel like I don't need to keep developing. I'm just kind of trying to wait him out. I want to save this in case like there's like an IS-2 or like a KV-1 or something that would need a removal order. And if I go and just deal with like this, which doesn't really need to be dealt with because it's so expensive for him to operate like right now. So I feel like it's better to probably just keep playing it slow. So, probably just going to play out a 52k here. I feel like I just trade, and then play out the 52k. Unless I wanted to, like, Partisans this, and then move up, trade. And that would keep the Partisans around. I don't think that's really crucial. Clear up some space in my hand. He's used a lot of Blitz T-34s, but it's definitely not, like, over. He's still got a lot of the other ones. Now the question is, where does he go? Good, he's not going phase. That's actually perfect for me, so... Now we're going to Winter Offensive. This is a decent time to do that, and then we'll play 61st out. Thankfully, our amount of guards are quite good, but I definitely want to try to save these 4 cards to blow him out of the water with some big play. Because he absolutely is going to have stuff like 82nd. This might be a nuke target. Because let's see, otherwise I'd have to hammer that, and then sickle 83rd that, just to keep the nuke. I could. It would not be that expensive, but that removes most of my single hard removals. I think it's worth it. The threat of the nuke stops him from overcommitting, which gives me more time to kind of like piecemeal deal with stuff. Next turn could be 272nd into Red Banner. That would be a particularly effective power spike. I guess it depends on what he does. Well, he's taking a very slow turn, which I think gives me the clear to commit to this. Could he... What are U.S. countermeasures? No, there's nothing on deployment. There's nothing to trigger with deployment, so... But double IS-2 is going to put a lot of pressure on him. Like, this is definitely going to be very hard for him to deal with. He's going to have to respond quite drastically to this, which hopefully opens me up to overpowering with, like, Manhattan, or just him not having an answer. Alright, well, definitely not a meta deck, but I'll throw this one in because that was a pretty interesting deck. And you could see that even under constant pressure from some pretty big, scary blitz stuff, we were able to ever so consistently stem that tide. And with that, that is the deck for today. As you can see, it does quite well against aggro, being able to pretty decisively destroy the aggro decks just through its sheer amount of guards and removal. We saw it go up against pretty much everything except British Air, but it was able to beat all of the aggro decks, and did lose out to a slower value deck, which ramp was said to be one of the hardest. Again, I'm going to point down into the description. Make sure to go check out J King, who's one of the best players of cards ever, pretty much. He does a lot of high-quality content, just playing at high levels or analyzing various tournaments, so check him out down below. Also, make sure to like and subscribe this video. That everything helps, and I appreciate it greatly. And otherwise, stay tuned, as I'll have more deck techs and videos of cards coming down the pipeline. Thank you all so much for watching. I always appreciate it, and have a good day.